There is an inevitability when it comes to the reintroduction of a gold standard. It is such a good way to measure value. It's such a good way to design a monetary system. So we will go back to a gold standard. And I think if you combine a gold standard with a fixed gold silver ratio, then that would mean that we would not only be able to use precious metals as currency again, just as currency in your pocket, gold coins, silver coins, maybe in the form of gold backs that you can just uh, exchange and carry with you in your wallet, but also combined with new technology, you could move large amounts of precious metals using maybe blockchain technology. So you can prove you are the legal owner of a certain amount of precious metals. So I think the reintroduction of a gold standard, it is inevitable. So it's not even a if question, it is a when question. The when is a very good question. I would not be able to answer that question, but I'm thinking that seeing the destruction that our current monetary system is creating all over the world. So it's not just a European or an American situation. It is a worldwide situation, and you can see this destruction based on ambition and corruption. And gold, as I tell in my book, Chaos Without Gold, you can know for certain that if you reintroduce a gold standard, all that corruption and all its outflows, social, cultural, will die in an instant. If I knew the answer, I would of course speculate on that outcome. But what I can say is, for example, the gold to silver ratio. So if you take a look at this ratio, it's the ratio in which it is produced or comes out of the ground is mined. 1 in 8, 1 in 9, right? So if you take a natural price of gold versus silver and you take this ratio, then silver would be astronomically more than it is right now.
Right.
If you then also take into account that silver, even though it is a precious metal, most people will say it's a semi-precious metal because it corrodes slightly, just in a tiny, tiny bit. But because it's used in these microscopically small amounts, um, there are trash heaps all over the world that contain hundreds of millions of ounces of silver put together. And for to be able to recycle that, the price would have to at least, let's say, 10x before you can do urban mining.
Right.
Take into account that which erodes or corrodes away, then silver is such a precious and rare metal that to and if you also take into account, of course, manipulation. A couple of days ago, I think there was an article on Reddit where someone said it's 500 million ounces were dropped in an instant or something.
Yeah.
And I've seen those patterns, right? So we know that manipulation is taking place on a super large scale. Well, if you take all these factors into account, then I would say that I will not do a price prediction because I just don't. I
Right.
don't know what the price is going to be. But I do know that if something breaks, because it will break, nothing that cannot last forever lasts forever. So if it breaks or when it breaks, you want to be in silver because people will scramble to and then be they will return to the obvious, and that is that silver is highly precious. It is highly precious, and
Yeah.
everyone needs to have it in their portfolio. And the same for gold, of course, because the gold paper to physical ratio is about 1 in 100. If an ETF breaks because it's pooled gold or it's a derivative of a derivative, then you just know that a lot of people are going to scramble to get that physical metal in their ownership, in their legal ownership, and then you have to people will just pay whatever someone is asking.
Yeah.
And that
It,
will also destroy the currency, of course. Well, I would say a 100% coverage would be mandatory. So if you have a bank and your bank says it has, let's say, 100 ounces of gold, then it would need to be able to prove that it has 100 ounces of gold. And that
right.
is, I think, where new technologies really kick in, because you are no longer dependent on a auditor that comes that visits one time a year, that takes a subtle count of, oh, this is how much it seems to be. You can just use, let's say, blockchain technology or camera surveillance, or you can use all these new technologies that we have now to make sure that the physical gold is allocated 100%. Of course, also, and that is a technology that we use, and we are the only one, Gold Republic is the only one that uses, is the daily transfer of legal ownership of that precious metal. And that is, I think those type of technologies are really going to kick in, or could be really useful if we redesign a new gold standard. And then, of course, you have to find a ratio in which gold and silver are measured against each other. You could have that float and let the free market decide, of course.
Right.
But we do know that that ratio of now, I think 1 in 90 is far from realistic. So I think the let's say 1500-year average of 1 in 15, maybe 1 in 25 is much more accurate when it comes to the valuation of gold to silver. Yeah, well, first of all, our turnover is skyrocketing. Really, it is. I've been saying this for a couple of years because it's been true for a couple of years. But the rate of acceleration is also increasing. So let's say a year ago we had a plus 10%, and now we see a plus 10% in the first quarter. And then that would mean that if we continue this acceleration, then at the end of the year we would have a 25, 30, 40% increase of turnover. Well, turnover, the rate in which people buy precious metals at Gold Republic.
Wow.
And that has everything to do, I think, with the current sentiment, cultural sentiment as well, where people are just losing their trust in the current monetary system, because everybody can see it's failing. You
Yeah.
cannot see you cannot not see it's failing. So except for a couple people that are, they are either indoctrinated, or that they just stick their head in the sand. They don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Everybody is seeing what's happening, and people are taking action, and they are buying gold and silver and also platinum in the last, let's say, 2, 3 months.
Yeah.
People have also poured into platinum, and you can see that because it's had a plus 40, 45% in 2 months. So people are really starting to, in larger amounts, but also in accelerated fashion, are turning to precious metals. I have three tips, or you could say three things I think you need to take into account when investing in precious metals. First of all, only invest with an amount that you don't need for a while, right?
Right.
And with a while, I mean not days, weeks, months, but years. So, for example, if you want to invest in gold, right, then you need to take into account that gold has an average of 10% gains in the past 25 years when measured in euros per kilogram. The same for silver, by the way. But that means that with the investing cost, and because it's physical, it always is a little bit more expensive than when you buy an ETF. But you don't want to buy an ETF, because if it breaks, then you lose everything.
Right.
So keep into account that you want to invest with funds that you can miss for a while. Secondly, I think this is a long-term investment. It is a long-term investment in which I would say take into account not your own life, but see if you can build generational wealth, because
Yeah.
gold and silver are the most well equipped of all investments that can build generational wealth. There is nothing that even comes close to the shadow of gold and silver when it comes to building generational wealth. So take into account generations, because it also switches your mindset into thinking not for yourself, which I think is fine, but think kids,
Yeah.
grandkids. And the third thing I think is really important to take into account is dollar cost average. So of course, if you have no gold, you have to buy gold.